So what do we have left to rely on, to resist, to fight, to defeat transnational capital? Nationalism. We need nation. A nation needs borders. So we need to rebuild borders. We need to control immigration. When you control immigration, you control the culture. You control your home. You keep your culture. You keep it safe for yourself, your children. Freedom and equality, those are wonderful values, cultural heritage from the Western world. But over time, there are bound to be people who think they deserve more, who want to be freer than others, wants to be more equal than others. But if they pursue that outright, they're going to break in the law. They're going to be stopped, hung down as criminals. So they have to figure out a way, change the social climate, the way to persuade others and themselves that they deserve more. So they can gain more and they can feel good about themselves. That's when mental illness comes in. Because when you have the victim mentality, it makes you feel that you deserve more. Others owe you. You're oppressed. You're the victim. So others have to compensate you, give you affirmative action or DEI. Or although you don't think you personally, you even feel guilty, like white guilt. You have all the privileges and feel guilty about it. So how do you redeem yourself? You support, advocate for the victims. So you feel good about yourself. At the same time, your virtual signal. Who are those people? Those victims, especially people with white guilt, people who don't fit any one of those boxes, and yet they sympathize with victimhood. Those has to be mentally ill because they themselves feel like a victim because maybe they were ignored as a child or as an infant, probably because we have more and more parents who are not fit parents, probably because the economy, the state of the nation, or the state of the West in general. It takes two incomes to put food on the table and roof over the head. So both parents have to work outside the home and they have relatively less time for their children, or they send the children to daycare or have some nanny taking care of them. And those higher caretaker are not as good as parents. And the children have to compete with other, like a daycare center, with other children for the attention of the workers there. And their parents themselves are not as attentive to the children or don't have enough time. So when the children have needs, the infant or toddler or small child has needs that aren't being met. Like when they're crying, no one's coming to comfort them quickly enough. They feel scared, they feel deprived, they feel insecure, and feel like the victim. With their little mind, they're so vulnerable, there's nothing they can do, so they feel victimized, and they consider their caretakers villains. So they care that whether that caretaker is a hired caretaker or their own parents. So over time, they have the resentment, they have victimhood, they consider the other people oppressors or villains. They carry that through adulthood. When they've had first contact with politics, they apply that same mentality because that's their way of thinking through their life. So of course, they're going to apply to politics, and that's when we have wokeism. Those people become wokies. And so if you fit one of the boxes, you're ethnic minority or gender minority, or you're a woman, or you're sexual minority, you're gay, lesbian, trans, you think yourself as a victim. You deserve more. You deserve DEI, affirmative action, that kind of good stuff. And your white peers, those people who don't fit those boxes, but still carry the victimhood with them, will be advocates for them. So that will divide the society because there are people who are not mentally ill. That will be very irritating for them, at least, because they want the society reasonable institution, rules, and order. But because of those so many victims nowadays, and the society is divided. So that becomes a cultural war with conservatives versus woke people. So you can say those people gain what they want because the social climate, they gain what they want in the name of social justice. But who is the biggest beneficiary? Who gained the most from that culture war? It's the transnational capital, globalists, because the globalists, all they want is their capital to be able to flow liquidly from place to place to wherever they can make the most profit. They don't want any restrictions. They don't want any borders. They don't want any national economy. They want everything open. So they come in with their capital, with their power. They can come into a country and become oligarchs, but people will fight against them. They don't want oligarchs. They want democracy. So they had to find a way to distract people from that plot. So you have cultural war. Cultural war is everywhere. It tends to distract everybody. All of those things, race, gender, sexual orientation, on and on, the most pernicious is the borderless. It's immigration without assimilation, the unlimited immigration, meaning the borderless nation. So from the globalist and transnational capitalist standpoint, they want the nation borderless so they can move the capital in and out easily to pursue the highest profit. How do you do that? You change people's mind. You change people's mind from nation-oriented to thinking of themselves as global citizen. The nation should not have borders. So they will let immigrants in. Otherwise, they're selfish, bigot. They want to let people in. And by doing that, they dilute or eliminate nationalism, pave the way for globalist transnational capital to move their capital, to move their power, control everywhere. So the transnational capital and the globalists are the biggest beneficiary from that social climate. Why is it pernicious? Why is it harmful or even dangerous? Because you can let in a lot of migrants who are from a different culture, contradictory to your own culture, or even their culture 300 years behind your own culture. So there are things you don't want in your culture, but they come in, bring their culture with them, and at the same time refuse to assimilate. So over time, they replace you. You no longer have your own country. You no longer have your home. If they are outside your border in their own countries, you may have a diplomatic issues to deal with. But when they're coming into your own country, you have domestic issues, which is much, much harder, much, much stickier to deal with because they are around you. They're in your life. They can, over time, gain political power over you because maybe they have the numbers, maybe they vote in unity, and you will at the loss. That's why it's the most dangerous aspect of wokeism. We can even take it on a different level. Transnational capital, they thrive. They make a lot of money out of chaos, out of war. For one thing, if you have a war, transnationalists, they can move their capital to weapon manufacturing. They can make a lot of money out of it. With a war, destruction, their capital will come in for reconstruction. So the more destruction, the more war, the more shooting, the better off they are. But if you have war and tensions between two nuclear powers, then you got yourself a danger of nuclear annihilation on your hands. That's one thing we definitely need to stay far away from as possible. So you don't want those warmongers to control the media, to control the narrative, to gin up the tensions between nations. But that's exactly what the globalists tend to do. Whenever their calculation that particular regional conflict or tensions or forever war, they can gain control. War is a mechanism for control. Control is power plus your wealth. You can gain profit more effectively. So that's very dangerous for humanity. And transnational capital have no loyalty to any country. They just want their capital moved to the place that they can make the most profit. That's why monarchy, the kings, queens, they definitely didn't want the transnational capital because they undermine their sovereign. And theocracy, they don't want a transnational capital because transnational capital, the ideology they're pushing is materialism. Money is everything. But for a theocracy, for religious people, God, your relation with God, your faith is the most important thing, not money. So theocracy and monarchy are against transnational capital, but those times are gone. We can never go back to theocracy or monarchy for obvious reasons. We want democracy. So what do we have left to rely on, to resist, to fight, to defeat transnational capital? Nationalism. We need nation. A nation needs borders. So we need to rebuild borders. We need to control immigration. When you control immigration, you control the culture. You control your home. You keep your culture. You keep it safe for yourself, your children. So nationalists are a solution. You have to control the borders first, control the population, control the culture, then you can talk about other things. Recently, China enacted a law called Law on Promoting Ethnic Unity and Progress. Of course, China has minority issues that they have to deal with. That's why the law lays out the institution and the rules and the policies to make sure there's unity in the country, not divided by ethnic lines. Of course, China's ethnicity situation is different from the US. For an old country, their ethnic minorities have their own homes, usually on the frontiers, and for 1,000 years. Different from countries like the US, where all immigrants and minorities are spread all over the places, and probably mostly cities, and so that we deal with it differently. But the US can take a page from the Chinese in terms of spirit. We need to put unity at the highest priority. We need to promote or require assimilation and also control the border. We control who gets to come in. So we need nationalism. After World War II, the world order is based on nation states. All members of the United Nations are nation states. They structure as nation states, they behave as nation states, they behave internally and internationally as nation states. So you have to have nationalism so you can have nation states. If you don't have nationalism, the nation states will fail. It will collapse. It will full of contradiction. And that's where globalists come in to destroy your country for their own profits. So our hope is nationalism. And in China, the law on promoting ethnic unity and progress is under Xi Jinping's policy to maintain, to promote unity. In the United States, our nationalistic leader is Donald Trump. I have to say Donald Trump has spotted success in terms of his nationalist agenda, MAGA agenda, because he's compromised. He's not betraying MAGA, but he's compromised by various ways. For one thing, there has been 3 assassination attempts on him. Maybe someone will mention, oh, well, or he's probably thinking to himself, next time they won't miss it. And that will have weight on his mind down the road when he's making some critical decision, and that will influence his decision, most likely. So he's compromised one way, they compromised many ways. Basically, he's nationalist, he has a nationalist agenda, but he's not ready to sacrifice his own life or his own wealth or his children's lives, family, for that. So it's compromised, and plus nationalism probably is not in the mainstream yet. But we need to persevere. One day, maybe Donald Trump we can't put too much hope on him, but maybe next nationalist leader that we elected will continue the progress. Maybe it's J.D. Vance. Most likely it's from the Republican side. So we also need to look at the Democrat side. Who's on the Democrat side? Is it a strong candidate on the other side? And the Republican side, is J.D. Vance electable? Or would there be someone else popping up from somewhere? It's a long time from now to 2028 election. So we'll see. But don't lose hope. And we need to persist on the road of nationalism. That's our only hope. We can even cooperate with nationalist countries of the world. Those nationalist countries, they're not woke. Look at Hungary, Poland, they're not woke. They control their borders. They make sure people they don't think is good for their society are not going to their countries. So that's the hope for us, not the Western European or the US model. And actually, Western Europe is deeper in that problem that we can see. They have the migrant problems, crime, and social division, and maybe the legal challenges in Britain, in Western Europe, in France, Germany, Spain. Today's Western Europe could be tomorrow's United States. So we need to really be alert on that. We need to head it off. The way we do it is look at those countries that are not woke in the world. China is not woke. Well, I have to say Iran is not woke, but Iran's a theocracy. So like I mentioned, theocracy is a contravening force against transnational capital or against the woke. And there are countries that are not woke. U.S. will, over time, becomes a secondary country. U.S. citizens, their interests, their security will be sacrificed because of wokeism. We need to on guard on that. We need to head off the trend. We need to promote nationalism, elect nationalist leaders, and we need to work together, do your part to influence others, to defeat, I have to say, mentally ill. The mentally ill people are those people who are victimized as children, now carry their mental illness, their victimhood in their politics. We need to make sure they're not the influence, they're not the mainstream. They don't elect the leaders that are woke. We need to do our part, use our voice, use any political means, legal means, and stop their advancement. That's our only hope. If you're not mentally ill, I urge you to work with other normal people to stop the trend. I hope you're with me. And I'm Eric now from the Geopolitical Forum. I want to thank you for your attention. Please like, subscribe, and share. I will see you next time.